Hey, everybody, welcome to DBC Inc. Facebook Live, also on YouTube. And I'm Dave Burgess. So glad to be joining you. And what I'd like you to do is, if you get a chance, throw your name over in the comments and be sure to let us know who is here, where you are joining us from. And then you know what else? It's Thanksgiving week is almost here. So every school does it a little different. Some have just Thursday, Friday off. Some have the whole week off. Some have the Wednesday off before Thanksgiving. Let us know what you got coming up this week. You made it. This is a long stretch of the year, but you've made it almost to Thanksgiving week. So good for you. Let us know how your school does that. Kristen, thanks for joining us. Number one into the chat. That's awesome. And also, I am joined by a special guest tonight. Rushton, how you doing?
I am doing well, doing well. You don't look all that Tara-like to me, but all good.
Yeah. So Tara is on the road traveling tonight. And so I am joining in from the end of a ping pong table in the family room of my mom.
I'd say that's a perfectly good place to do so. And I'm pleased that Tara, while driving, is not trying to do this.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it past her, but she definitely, she's put me in charge. I have the reins tonight. So we'll see how that goes.
What's the plan?
And let's see who we got going here. So we have Sean is here. We have Kristen saying hello. Thank you very much.
Hey, Kristen.
Yes. And so, Rushton, for those who do not know who you are, what you do, where you're located, all those kind of things like that, maybe let us know what is your current role in education.
All right. Well, so it all began when I was born. I'm in San Jose, California. I am a former high school teacher of Japanese language, a former principal. I started a company called Next Vista for Learning in 2005. Miraculously, the thing survives despite the limited business experience of yours truly. And as a result of that work, I end up doing a lot of things with schools and districts and speaking at shindigs and such. My number one connection along those lines is a school in San Mateo, California, called Junipero Serra High School. It's a Catholic boys' school. They turn 13-year-old boys. I will leave 13-year-old boys undescribed into fine young men by the time they graduate, which I think is actually kind of no small thing. And I co-teach a class there called Creative Solutions for the Global Good.
Wow. Okay. Well, now I'm intrigued by the name of this class, Creative Solutions for the Global Good. So give me a sense of what kind of stuff the students are working on in the class.
Well, I excited to do so because it's a really, really fun class to teach. I think all of us as teachers have something in our head that's like, if I were constructing the class that I would want to have been in, what would it look like? That would be this one. So the class, there are no tests, no papers. There is homework, which mostly comes down to watch this incredibly cool story and share it with family and write down some of the cool things they say about it, stuff like that. They do have one big project, and that one big project is something that they develop themselves. We don't tell them, do this. Instead, they have to figure out, okay, how can I make this be something that makes a difference in the lives of others? And so often they'll kind of start in the space of, all right, we're going to fix this problem this way. It's like, time out. How do you know that problem is as you've described it? Have you talked to these people? Is this actually what they're concerned about? How do you get help on figuring out the new things that they've tossed your way? Have you written a business letter before? Have you tracked any of this stuff? What if everybody's interested? What if nobody's interested? We just ask a ton of questions and talk about cool stuff. And I mean that pedagogically speaking, right? Because when you think of what's cool, then people are intrigued, want to know more, paying attention, are interested in what you have to tell them. And that's not unimportant for getting people to put more of themselves into the stuff that they do, to begin seeking a certain excellence that they may not have known, kind of lay within them. So there's just there's a lot of fun that comes from that class. I could kind of go on and on and on about that class. One last bit. In the spring, at the end of the school year, the students actually present their projects to a global audience. In the spring of this year, when we were finishing off the last academic year, there were over 100 people from 19 countries that
Wow.
registered and took part to encourage these kids. And the kids, they've done a good job, right? So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to hear kids talk about cool stuff they've done.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and I love the fact that it ends with that authentic audience, and it's such a powerful thing. And I also love the emphasis on questions. I talk to people about it all the time. Questions are the key to creativity. If you want to change your teacher's classroom, change their questions. I preach that,
Amen.
and use the quote from E. Cummings: "Always the beautiful answer who asks a more beautiful question." And so,
Yeah.
it's for creativity, it's true. I think for innovation, it's true. And so that focus on questioning is just so essential. So I love that.
Well, essentially the people who do a good job leading are people who tend to do good job listening and good job asking questions, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought about when Tara contacted me and said, "So about like the live shindig," I'm like, "Yeah." I thought about, all right, well, what is it that we do to get teachers to understand their own potential as community leaders? So in this class, we're really kind of working to get students to understand that they have something to give in terms of making a difference in their communities. And often when I'm out and working with teams and stuff like this, my goal is to get teachers to see something very similar. You already have a sense of the way the community works. You already have a sense of the challenges that they face. You already know what it means to listen in order to inspire and bring the best out of people, right? And if that's all the case, then you may not know that you can connect with groups in the community, that there are a whole set of people that you can develop a network in your community, so that when a kid says, "I'm interested in this," you can be like, "I know who you need to talk to." And that kind of approach to connecting kids to their possibilities is completely in line with, you have a role to play to make a difference in your community as well. And I think for a lot of teachers, just given the way we work, often there's that keep your head down, get home to the end of the day. No, right? I mean, we want you to do things in a way that makes sense. But on the other hand, we want you to be inspired by what you do as well. And a lot of teachers are just a lot closer to that than they know.
Right. And I love that a lot of times teachers feel maybe a little nervous about attempting something because they are lacking some personal knowledge in a particular area. But I love that your focus is on like, well, no, you don't have to know all these things. You can serve as the connector between the student and someone who is expert in that. And that is also a viable and important role. And you don't have to be embarrassed by the fact that you don't have that information for that kid, if you can serve as a connector to help them find it and to get connected to someone who does.
And in thinking about it that way, I think one of the important things for anyone listening to remember is that it's not our job. It's not our job to give information. It is our job to inspire students to want to pursue possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And so if we think about a kid doing a project that's a really cool project, and I'll tell you about one of the creative solutions projects. I love talking about like this stuff, right? A few years ago, 2019-20 school year, we had a junior come into the creative solutions class, and he's this wonderful kid named Matt. Matt, kind of quiet kid, geeky tech kid, I mean, just great kid. And he would spend his time when he's doing community service, helping out at the local senior citizen center in the town where he lives. Okay, all good, right? When he goes there, what he wanted to do is sit down with the senior citizens and be like, here's how you use Facebook. Here's how you connect with your friends from, back in the day. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. That's what he wanted to do. Is that what he did? No. What he would do is essentially get there and they'd be like, so this computer is like loaded down with viruses as well. Why? Because the senior citizens are like clicking on every last ad. Malware is like just streaming in. So he's like cleaning up the 4 computers in the lab constantly. So he comes into our class and he's like, I've got my project. I'm going to learn to program a Raspberry Pi. I'm going to attach that thing to the server. It's going to interrupt the ad so that it doesn't make it to those 4 computers in the lab, so that I can sit down with those seniors and talk about how to connect with their friends. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds fantastic. Let's give that a shot. Rita's the co-teacher. Rita and I are like, do it. He gets about 95% of the way through this. He's programmed the thing, it's working out in tests, but he's still trying to iron out a few bugs. And then March 2020, boom, COVID. So no one's going to the senior center, including him. And he's trying to set up a network in his house to test this stuff that he's doing, right? So he's trying to make this work. Spring becomes summer, summer becomes fall. As a senior, he comes back into the class because we have in addition to the creative solutions for the global good, we have the advanced solutions for the global good. And so he comes into advanced solutions for the global good. And a month into it, he comes to us and he says, I think I need to change my project. And we're like, oh, because, we love the project that he came up with. We're like, well, talk to us. What you got in mind? He said, well, these senior citizens I was helping, right? They're at home alone in lockdown. Like they're not connected to their family and friends. And I was talking with a friend, and what we think we can do is we can put it out on Nextdoor that we'll take donated laptops, we'll refurbish them, make them Zoom ready, and we'll get them back in their hands so they can connect with their family and friends. We're like, oh my God, that's awesome. Can you do it? He's like, yeah. All right, go do it. Well, I mean, he learns all this stuff along the way about how to, kind of handle this, handle that. He's telling us about it. He's like, yeah, most of these laptops, one change of the hard drive to a solid state drive, and this thing's fine. We're like, oh, well, that's good. Where are you getting the money to buy the solid state drives? It's like, well, some of the people who donate computers, they're donating like the gaming machine. We're not giving the gaming machine to grandma. So we just sell that thing on eBay, use the funds to buy the solid state drives, to refurbish the laptops, and bam, it's all good. We're like, oh my God, that's great. So this is, this goes really, really well, right? He gets like 25, 30 senior citizens reconnected to family and friends as a result of this project. He's doing all kinds of good stuff. In the spring of 21, somebody puts a note in the ISTE Commons, right? That's something along the lines of examples of authentic learning. Well, I'm like, I can help you with that, right? And so I'm like, well, kid Matt, computers. And ISTE contacts us and it's like, so that sounds really cool. Can we interview the kid? And I was like, sure. Let's contact the parents, see if they're up for it. The parents are like, who are these people? But all good, right? And they interview them, and that goes well. A month later, they're like, so about ISTE next summer, right? Which was summer of last year, right? We're going to have 3 students on the main stage. It was all Zoom, but still main stage, talking about like their authentic learning projects. You think Matt would be interested? I'm like, let's ask him, see. Well, he was, and he did. And so, here's this kind of low key, kind of humble kid, talking to several thousand teachers about helping senior citizens out with computers. And why is that cool? Because it was his project, right? And what matters, and this is the very long circle I just got back to, what matters in that whole process is that he's telling the story in such a way that makes people excited, right? They're excited about stories. When as a teacher, you're being a leader, you're explaining something via a story. When you are a teacher inspiring kids, you aren't just giving facts, you are telling stories that allow students to see themselves as learners and scholars in ways they never have before, excited about things they never knew before. Stories make a difference, right? And so when we talk about like teachers as leaders, we're talking about the power of stories, and we're talking about what kids can do and the stories that they tell that then get everybody excited about what can happen at your school. And suddenly people are like, how can I help?
Yeah, I love that. I love that flexibility, adaptability too, of going into it with one idea and how that shifted and changed over time. As he saw what he was really up against and what he was dealing with and where the problems actually were. Like he had an idea of what he was going to do, but then the reality on the ground was not what he expected, and he made those shifts. And same with the pandemic adjustment too.
That whole thing of so much of education is a bit of a recipe, right? Do this and then do this and do this. You'll find this answer if you do it right, and blah, blah, blah. Finding something that doesn't conform to your expectations about the learning, that's where really cool stuff happens. Yeah. And so when a kid is saying, I ran into this barrier, it was flummoxing me, assuming they know the word flummox, for this reason or that reason. And this is what helped me get past it. That's a powerful story. It means that it sticks not only for the listener, but for the student in thinking about the content, right? And same with us as teachers. I tried this. I've got this kid. He is the biggest, piece of poop, in my class, and blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, stop venting. he just needs to be in another class. Or he is that opportunity. And by the way, it's mathematically likely to be a he, but he is that opportunity to have a moment where you turn the kid around. And will it take work? It will. Will it always work? Of course not. But when it happens, that's why we do this job. Because there's very little out there that's better than we just helped a kid see a new path. And that kid turned away from something that was horrible or tragic or depressing or whatever, right? And that's why what we do is so interesting, because we have the power to generate those kinds of stories. And as leaders, we are people who can make those kinds of things happen at scale when we start seeing that that's a part of how a process can work, if we're not just putting our head down and getting to the end of the day.
Right. And I love the entrepreneurial lesson that they're getting as well, that frustration is wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that's an opportunity. When you have a problem, when you're frustrated with something, and then if you're frustrated with it and you can solve it, then there's probably a lot of other people that had that same frustration too. And if you can scale the solution, you have a business. And like that's Tim Ferriss wrote it as like a great entrepreneurial way to do things is to scratch your own itch. Where are you having resistance? Where is your frustration? Where are your problems? Where are your obstacles? You are probably expert at what's going wrong in your situation. So if you can solve that, and then you can scale that solution for other people who certainly have probably the same problem as you had, then you got yourself a business.
And how many businesses had I started before I started mine? 0. And it just turned out that my plan for how this business was going to work was going to be an utter failure. But I learned something along the way and was able to shift. And it was like, oh, okay, well, and it continues to go. And how long will it go? No idea. 2 months, 20 years, God knows. But if it ever kind of falls apart, then I just go back to teaching or school leadership or whatever. And it's stuff I already know I like to do. So no worries. But we're all getting older until we're not. And we might as well kind of be in that space of, there is this thing that I wanted to try and do, and I'm going to give it a shot. And I'm going to ask people how to go about it. And I'm going to do my homework, and I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to run into problems. And then I'm going to have something work out, and it's going to teach me a lesson in some way or make a difference in the lives of somebody, and all better because of it. That's how you live your life well.
Yeah, I love it. And David loves the story. Thanks, David, for joining us. Ryan Reed has jumped in here. Thank you, Ryan. Tara's been in here. So good. Thank you so much for all of you that are jumping in and listening. So Rushton, I have a question for you that came up in my head as you were talking. So you have these students, they come in on the first day of school, and it's this class that is very open-ended, and it's very dependent upon what they want to do for their project. First of all, my one question would be, do they ever work collaboratively together, or do they each have their own individual projects? And then also, when a kid comes in and you're explaining this to them, what kind of questions are you asking them, or what kind of process is there to help them zero in on what it is that they want to do? Because I imagine a lot of kids are like overwhelmed by that open-ended possibility, and they're used to so much more structure in their schooling. And now all of a sudden you're saying, no, you get to do what you want to do. What do you want to solve? And they're almost like paralyzed with choice.
The paralysis of not being given a recipe is very, very real, right? Yeah. And our goal in this class is to get them comfortable with something different, because a lot of these kids, they've been quite successful in a traditional environment, right? And so what they know, good. And then you put something a little different in front of them, and they're like, and that's a little work. So the question, how do we get them there? Couple of things. One of the things, and I'll stick this in the chat, by the way. This is a thing that I put out every week. All right. It's the Next Vista Inspiring Video. Next Vista is my little nonprofit attempt to save the world from ignorance, one creative video at a time. And the NVIV posts they're just wildly cool videos that are out there, along with what I hope are not the obvious discussion or writing prompts. Feel free to use that stuff. I mean, my site is like, there's no registration, there are no ads, and there's no tracking. How do you make money? Not via the site, clearly. But it's out there. It's a resource, and it's just available. I can use it any week. Please do. You're so nice. Happy to help. All right. And so that's that. Why do I put that there? Because for this class, stories of cool stuff and how we talk about those things helps get them in a mindset of like, what if I, right? Other things that we we have trouble with, if I ask a question to my group, so there are 15 guys in this class, and that may sound like not very many, but it's a banner group for us. I mean, that's the biggest group we've had so far. Why is that? A totally different story. But these kids are in the room, right? And I ask a question, and they're all like, and finally somebody will be like, and it'll be like, all right, so Dave, I'm glad you got an answer for this, and I do want to hear it, but I'll tell you what, don't raise your hand. Just jump in. Just jump in. If somebody else is talking at the same time, if Tara's talking at the same time, Dave, you turn Tara and you say, hey, you go ahead. And that's fine, right? It's completely fine. And for them, that's kind of a moment of like, because they're just not used to that. They're used to being in a setting where the teacher says, here's my question. And people think about their question, then they decide to raise their hand. They're recognized. They say their piece. They put their hand down. They start thinking about something else while other people might get the same experience. But it's not like you're really listening to what other people say, probably, because that's not the point. And that may be a pretty kind of harsh way of describing it. But in a lot of classes, that happens. And instead, we're just like, can you respond to what somebody else just said? Are you listening? I'd like to know that you're listening. And you ask good questions, and that tells us something important about you and what you're going to be able to do with your project. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my project, and that's completely okay. Now, not forever, but you got to get there, somehow, and that's a process. So let's talk through it. So getting them in that space where they're encountering a lot of stories about cool stuff that people have done out there. They're learning to communicate in ways that are different than they have before, and they're not saddled with like tests and papers. Yes, there is a place for tests and papers in our system. Fine. But it doesn't have to be everywhere in the system. And if what we're trying to do is get kids to see themselves from a new perspective, maybe something different would be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone is listening and they're thinking, this class sounds incredible. There's nothing like this on my campus. There's nothing like this in my district. Never heard of a class like this. And they're now placed in a position where they're inspired by what you say, and they're wanting to have some advice on how do you pitch and approach administration and try to even get something like this off the ground.
So I'm wondering if we have time for the answer to that one. However, I will say that one simple thing you can do is contact me. I'll help you out. All right.
Okay.
So let me get another link in the chat that will kind of allow that to be a thing. Nextvista.org/contact is a way to it says contact-us, but either one gets to me. And you can send a question. I'll be happy to talk to you about this stuff. So in a little more detail, these are classes that are in California approved as A to G for the UC system, things like this, believe it or not. It's one of those things where having that out there is helpful. I have done some presentations about creative solutions for the global good that I can point you to, recordings of that stuff. Happy to do that as well. Does it have to be a class? Not at all. Could it be a club? Of course. Could it be something for just a couple of students in your class? Yes. And let me add to that this. Do you have students in your class who, when you put that assignment out there, that test out there, that whatever out there, you know they are going to ace it? And they do? Well, then why are we doing it? Right? I mean, well, really, why? This kid may be a kid who is very, very good at following the recipe, but you could inspire that kid to see something totally different if you're like, I'll tell you what. You just explain to me at some point in the next week kind of what these concepts are about, just in a conversation, and that'll be fine. I'll give you the A. The only other thing you have to do is put together an interesting idea for a project, right? And then, for the next assignment that the kid's going to ace, you might say, all right, now what would you do to advance this project, say, to this point? And just let the kid do that. I mean, really, why not? right?
Right.
If the kid can keep explaining that they understand what you're saying in class and understood it the first time, and we don't need them to do A and B and C and D and E, all of these different things to show that they memorized it or whatever, then why not create the conditions in which a kid does something wildly cool? At which point, of course, some kid who's kind of skating by in school might be like, I want to do that. You're like, all right, show me you can do this other stuff, and I'm happy to let that happen to you as well. I mean, all I need to do is be able to explain to somebody that you know the material.
Yeah. So then these concepts, the concept of this class can be a standalone class, which would be wonderful. It's what you have, and it's what hopefully others will want to do. But it could be, like you said, a club, or it can be embedded into what they're already doing. Like any
Yeah.
teacher can take these ideas and concepts and embed it and allow students to kind of go down some of those rabbit holes.
Yeah.
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 I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I mean, like, experiment with it, right?
Yeah.
The one of the things that I'll say is I've got plenty of stuff that you might find useful in putting something like this together, but you've probably already heard enough to give it a try, right? You've got kids at your school in your class who are absolutely ready to do wildly cool things. And the only question is, who will be the teacher? Who will be the adult who says, "Tell me about what you'd like to make happen.
Right.
Let's see
Yeah.
how we make that happen."
All right. And so to kind of wrap things up, Rushton, a couple of things. First of all, I want everyone to know Rushton has 2 books with us at Daybers Consulting. And one is Making Your School Something Special, and one is Making Your Teaching Something Special. And I think kind of the name kind of gives it away, but I believe the first one is more of a kind of a system wide type thing, right? Maybe for a leadership team, and
It,
maybe the other one is more
it,
focused on what's the actual like class, what's happening in the classroom.
yeah. Well, here's what I learned, right? So that making your school something special is for both leaders and teachers.
Okay.
However, what I learned after I wrote this book is that for a lot of teachers, they're so focused on getting to where they want to be as teachers that the
Mhm.
idea of being part of a system to make the school better is just kind of a long shot. So I was like, well, I need to write this other book in order for people to understand the first book, right? And so the second book, making your teaching something special, if I may plug that, works this way. You may think, and actually, I'll start it this way. We preach a growth mindset to kids all the time, all the time. And so many of us professionally have a very fixed mindset about our own abilities as educators.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, oh, I mean, I'm a pretty good teacher, but I really care about the kids. It's like, no, wait, you can get a lot better very quickly. Like what's the magic formula for that? Snake oil salesman is no. Little things make you better, right? And so the book is 50 2 to 3 page chapters, each of which is one little thing that you could be wolfing down lunch in your 13-minute lunch slice or whatever, right? Read one of these chapters and be like, I'll try that in the afternoon. And you try it and you learn something from it, and that makes you a little bit better. And if you do that 50 times, one might understand the math well enough to go to that, I'm going to be a lot better teacher. Yes, exactly. And so for the low price of whatever it costs to get the book, or just, just trying cool stuff all the time, you can get to be a much better teacher, and you should be, because that's just a lot more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would love it if you would pick up one or both, hopefully, of Rushton's books. And also, Rushton is available to speak. And so if you're looking for speakers about topics just like this, for your conference, for your district, school, whatever it might be, Rushton, you can bring Rushton in. And Rushton, the links that you put in the chat, are those the best places for people to contact you? Do you want to do you
Probably
want
are.
to mention any socials or?
Yeah, truth be told, I've just spent less and less time on the socials. I encourage anybody who's making use of those socials in a great way, but yeah, email is the best way to get to me, or that link, nextvista.org/contact.
Perfect. See, and everyone's got their thing, right? Someone sends me an email, and it's like it's just entered into a black hole. But someone sends me a message on Twitter, and I might respond in 25 seconds.
Right. And part of that comes down to understanding our quirks, right?
Yeah.
What is it that allows us to do what we want to do as professionals?
Yeah.
And for me, getting stuff out of the inbox is like is a thing. And so if I need something done, I'll put in like a calendar event that has like an email notification, because now I'm like, oh, I got to get that out of the inbox. And not everybody works that way, but whatever it is that works for you, just understand what it is and build a system around that, and all good.
Yeah. And thanks to David, by the way, says you just got making school something special. So
Thanks, David. Contact me, man.
Yeah, let us know what you think, please. Get in touch with Rushton. Tag me on social media. Maybe not Rushton, but tag me on social media anyway, and I'll see it. Send an email to Rushton, tag me, and we'll both get the message that way. And so I want to thank everyone for taking a little bit of your Thursday night and spending it with us tonight. And you've almost made it to Thanksgiving week. It's been a long stretch. You're almost there. One more day, right? Hopefully, I know some of you might work some of the days next week, but it's close. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is not an oncoming train, I promise you. And so, and Rushton, I want to thank you also for taking some time out of your night to join us and to share all this wisdom with us.
My pleasure. I hope that the ping pong table situation there and terrace driving are all in kind of the best possible worlds, and all of you guys out there, that you get a little chance to breathe over Thanksgiving, however long that break may be, and you think of something wildly cool that you're like, I got to bring this back to the kids.
You got it. All right. Oh, by the way, this is David. As far as contacting you, he said, "Careful what you wish for."
Right. All good.
All right. Fantastic, everybody. Have a fantastic night. We will see you. No, we will not see you next week. It's Thanksgiving Day. So, next week we're off, and then we'll see you the week after that. Bye, everybody.